Okay, this is my third attempt at this video. I'm still getting used to the new camera, and I recorded the entire thing, and it came out just the way I wanted it to, and I didn't have the camera rolling. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and the first episode of this season of the Orville has just been behind us in the United States. I know that in Britain and in Europe it will be on the 7th, so I will try to do as few spoilers as possible during this review. But let me just say that one of the things that we have heard about this show before it came on was that they have an increased budget for this season and that you'd be able to see it on the screen. Now, I can attest to the fact that you can. The shots of the models of the ship look better than ever. The uniforms have improved. There are more sets that are built. There's more than one corridor in the ship now. There appears to be more of everything. We've seen a classroom. We have seen a simulator room, which is similar to a holodeck. We have seen a club in addition to the usual dining room that they've shown, and also a bar. So this is a good use of the extra money that they have in order to flesh out, if you will, more of the ship and the surrounds, and the special effects appear to be better as well, although we saw very little of that in this episode. This was mostly what they call a bottle show, in which everything was aboard the ship itself. Virtually everything. There was a scene or two that was not on the ship, but otherwise pretty much of it was on the ship itself. Now, the episode was called Georgia, which we're not going to tell you what that means, but the show is ostensibly around Bordus, although virtually all of the main characters get their time in the spotlight. We see some of Alara, and we see some of Dan, and we see some of course, Ed and Kelly. We have Dr. Finn, who appears to be having more of a relationship, if you will, with Isaac. Not really a romantic relationship, but Isaac has been kind of invited into her quarters to observe how she interacts with her children, and he also gives piano lessons, which is kind of interesting. A lot of stuff that goes on in this episode are things that might happen in between the adventures, and you never get much of that in most science fiction television shows, even though there has been little snippets of that here and there in various shows. I've never seen an entire episode devoted to just getting reacquainted with members of the crew, and I think that's what this was for. I think what we needed to do was to come in and remind ourselves after a year just who all the principals were and what their situations were, who the buddies were, who the romances were. I think they did pretty well with this. And in addition, they introduced some new characters. We have a new crew member who they have, without giving away anything, is a stellar cartographist. So that's a stellar cartographer, I guess you would call it. Also, we have a couple of more aliens we haven't seen before. They're members of the crew. One of them plays a piano. The other one is the manager of a club. They showed one of the new sets on the ship. Very little on the bridge. There was some stuff on the bridge, but most of it happened in crew offices, crew quarters, and public areas. That is to say, places like the mess hall and the bars and things like that. So they gave us a good look of the inside of the ship and how people are able to live on the ship over a period of time, and the kind of relationships that come about, and how some of them get started and how some of them are still working their way out. So I thought it was pretty good on that. I kind of like the idea that it's like a day in the life of living in space. There's an event that's going on. There is a plot to all of this, but for once the B plot seemed to be a little more interesting. So I think they did very well. We've seen the picture, and it's been shown elsewhere, of the new alien that has a horn in his head, and that is, in fact, a pretty big star, and he's playing a surprising role. I have a feeling it's going to be a recurring one. We also have a new school teacher, and we won't go any further into what the school teacher is into, but that's also going to be what looks like a recurring character. Also, maybe the beginnings of why Alara is going to leave. I'm not certain if this is pointing to that or not, but there is a little bit of nuance around Alara that makes me stop and think that maybe they are laying pipe, if you will, for her eventual leaving the show. They show more children on the ship as well than they did before, and that also gives us an idea the Doctor is not the only one to have a family there, that Bortus and Clyden are not the only one to have a child on board. So there is that, and Bortus and Clyden's child looks to be more than an infant. It's now looks to be, elementary school age. That species tends to grow up faster, I would presume, because they don't show any indication that there has been a lot of time going by, because the Doctor's children are about the same age as they were when we left them last year. We notice new makeup on Alara. I'm not certain if this is really the case. It may be my imagination. I'll have to go back and look, but I think her makeup has been one of those things that they have adjusted before, and so perhaps they wanted to do just a little bit more nuance. I'll take another look at that, and you can get back to me on that if you find it is something that I missed on that. The whole episode is something that I expected to lead up to a big joke. And in fact, in the beginning of it, they kind of call attention in a meeting with the crew that I don't want all the jokes to break out on this, says the captain. And it's almost as if Seth MacFarlane is telling his writers, I don't want all the jokes milked out of this. And in fact, they showed a great deal of restraint, and even to near the end of the episode, when I thought they were finally going to let loose with the big joke, they didn't do it. So I was impressed with that. And I was impressed with a couple of little things, too. One of them was a line that is given from one character to another when talking about relationships. Sometimes you need to be a little stupid once in a while. You'll get it in context, or if you've seen the show already, you know what I'm talking about. I thought that was a clever line. The one thing that did bother me about it is only really one thing that I found that bothered me about all of this, is that there's some indication that the captain and the chief medical officer don't know everyone on board. Now, they even in the episode mention that they are a small ship with a small crew. There's no way that the chief medical officer, who has to keep medical records on everybody, would not know everybody, and certainly not the captain. That's one of the captain's main jobs, is to know everybody that works on his ship. And that surprises me that he would meet somebody for the first time who's been on the ship for some time, it would seem. So that bothered me there. But otherwise, I was most impressed with this show. So that is where I see it right now. We learned a little bit more about Saleans also. I kind of liked that. And a little bit more about Bortus, as we might have expected from the beginning in this show. So, before we go, I do want to ask you, as usual, if you will subscribe and click the bell in order to know when the next video is coming about, because we're going to have several coming in the next week. We're going to have a Doctor Who video, which will follow the special on New Year's Day, and then we'll have another video on the Orville on their regular episode on Thursday. So if you are around then, we hope that you'll watch that and hope that you don't miss it. They'll be coming late after that because we'll try to get them put up on the same day as the show comes on, and they all air in the evening here. So I'll try and put all that together as quickly as I can. But before we go, I want to thank everybody who has made this such a memorable year for me as this year closes out. I started this channel in about the middle of January in 2018 and really didn't have any expectation of going very far with it. I thought it might be an interesting hobby to have, an interesting exercise in seeing if an audience could be built with this. And it has gone beyond my expectations in as short a period of time as it has. I have you to thank for that. For watching the videos, for commenting, for subscribing. Thank you very much. I am really very touched by that and by all of the encouraging messages that I've had over this year. Thank you so much. So please go to the comments and tell me what you think about this episode of The Orville and what you see coming for this season, if you like. And until we talk to you about Doctor Who next, don't go far.